Hey everyone, and welcome to my first video of the decade. So today, I'll be talking about one of the biggest franchises in gaming, Pokémon. I don't think it needs any introduction. With its myriad of spin-offs, card games, TV shows, films, and apps, it's safe to say that the Pokémon universe has remained a phenomenon for the last 20 plus years. And while I wouldn't call myself a hardcore fan, I do like to dip back into the series every now and then. So join me as I do so again by reviewing the latest entries, Sword and Shield. Specifically Sword, although, let's be real, there's not that much difference. Alright, so you'll be playing as your own custom character who we first meet, along with your best friend Hop, being gifted their first Pokemon from a selection of 3 from Hop's older brother, Lee. I chose Scorbunny, and then you can head off on your adventure across the Galar region as you enter the gym challenge to become a stronger trainer. So yeah, for the most part, it's pretty standard Pokemon fare. The characters are fun, and there's a couple of different dynamics, like how the gym battles are massive televised events, and that Hop's brother is a superstar Pokemon master. You've also got this subplot where you'll learn about this legend, so there is some stuff to get interested in narratively, there's just not a lot that I can say about it. But what is worth talking about is the presentation, because here it's very apparent that these are developers more used to making games for handhelds. I'd actually recommend that you play this game in the Switch's handheld mode. There's something about the voiceless cutscenes, pop-ups and, pop-downs, and the movements of characters that you can accept on a smaller screen, but really doesn't translate to a TV screen. And while this is a generally nice looking game, it's clearly not quite up to scratch with most modern titles. It's not a huge problem, but Game Freak ought to work on improving the presentation for next time. But is that the only thing that'll need improving for the inevitable next game? Well, let's see as we take a look at the gameplay. Okay, most of you probably know what to expect from a main entry Pokemon game, traversing the region whilst getting into turn-based battles. So what's new? Well, excluding all of the new Pokemon species, I only count 2 big additions. First is the Wild Area, a small overworld environment giving you different Pokemon, the ability to change camera direction, and these camping spots that I didn't really use. It's alright. There's nothing wrong with it per se, but it doesn't add that much to the overall experience. And that's all I have to say about it, so I'll move on to the other big new innovation with the game, Dynamaxing. During any of the gym battles, you can make one of your Pokemon bigger and stronger for 3 goes, but so can your enemy, although they choose to save it for their last Pokemon every time, so you don't need to worry about any nasty surprises. There's these spots of the aforementioned overworld that'll let you battle one too. Again, it's nothing too crazy, although it can be occasionally irritating for reasons I'll get to a bit later on. But for now, this is a fairly typical Pokemon adventure. But I've enjoyed this series' formula in the past, and this game was no exception. I really enjoy traversing the world and making my way from town to town. I'm not entirely sure what it is, but making my way through the routes, getting to see the new location, checking out the clothes store before tackling the gym gave me great satisfaction. It probably helps that the different areas are aesthetically unique from one another, leading to a sense of unpredictability and ultimately discovery that makes just running or cycling across Galar a treat. And from my own personal experience with the series, I'd say that the gyms here are my favourite that I've come across. They all have their own unique style of gameplay that makes each one stand out from one another, and it also makes them a ton of fun to play through in between the battles. Which brings me nicely onto the combat. Yes, having talked about it in my reviews for other RPGs, it's finally time for me to give my detailed thoughts on the Pokémon fighting system. I'm sure you all know the drill. You throw out a Pokémon and then select an attack to use on your enemy. Different types of Pokémon and different types of moves work more effectively against certain opponents, and you can use potions to revive health or cure any ailments thrown your way. Okay, there have been a couple improvements made here. First of all, thank Christ you can finally see wild Pokemon on the map. If I wasn't in the mood to battle, the random encounters used to drive me up a wall in the previous games, but now, a la Ni no Kuni, you can see and dodge them with ease. True, there's a couple of areas that may feature random encounters, but still, it's a much appreciated change. It's also possible to avoid some of the trainer battles whilst making your way through some of the routes. Again, if I'm not in the mood to battle, it's kind of fun to try and sneak past them.
Oh, crap. You know, I do have places to be today, stranger.
But when I need to level up a bit, it's quite useful to find some trainers to fight. Also, on a quick side note, I would say that the lack of a villain does make some of the mandatory story battles a bit irritating. You won't be fighting a mysterious mastermind or his henchman, no. Instead, you're against a smug git or this other girl's devoted fans. Anyway, the last change that might irritate some hardcore fans is how after you've fought a type of Pokemon once, the game will then tell you what attacks are effective against them. Some might feel this takes away from any challenge, but I found it useful and it doesn't make things too much easier. But onto the combat itself, and I've been under the impression for a while that I don't actually like the fighting in these games. And okay, I don't love it, and there are times when it can irritate me, but I still can have quite a bit of fun with the fighting. It can be rather satisfying at times, and some of the close calls can make certain battles quite thrilling. Now, the inverse of that is that when you do die right near the end of the fight, it's pretty frustrating having to go through the whole thing again. See, the combat is fun when it isn't too difficult, but when it is, it can really get on my nerves. And okay, I might be coming off as kind of obnoxious saying that, but the thing with turn-based combat is that there's no skill involved. You just select the command and hope it pays off. And this makes using health potions a little annoying because you know you're likely to take some damage afterwards anyway. And because of the turn-based combat, it makes overpowered enemies 10 times more frustrating. True, whenever I have a significant upper hand on my opponent, I find it satisfying, but when it's happening to you, it feels really cheap. Especially with the Dynamax feature. My enemies can one-hit kill me fine, but when it's the other way around, there's almost no difference. There's certain things that really get under my skin, like how every trainer will use a potion on their first Pokemon, or those moves that always have to go first. Now, I'll admit it does feel good to outsmart them, and despite everything I've complained about, I mostly do enjoy the combat. I think ultimately I find the difficulty spikes frustrating because the only way to improve is to just level up some more. But when you either feel really powerful or when the opponent can hold their own, just not far too well, it is fun. Victory is occasionally rewarding and executing some of the moves can feel pretty satisfying. I enjoy it most of the time. Now, this game received some controversy towards its release. The core Pokémon series hasn't evolved much since its inception, and I imagine the move to home consoles and the lack of changes caused people to finally put their feet down. I understand why, definitely, but as someone who doesn't feel that strongly about the series, I was still able to have a good time with this game. I have my grievances with the series, but the world each game creates manages to win me over anyway, and there's things here that I had a ton of fun with. I'm a little hesitant to call it great, but as long as you know you're getting more of the same, I'd recommend the journey across the Galar region. It's a flawed but enjoyable adventure that is, for better or worse, Pokémon at its most classic.
The hell are you on about? I beat you on my first try. The first real roadblock was that goddamn Dreadnought of Nessa's. Oh! Not that Nessa!